In the heart of the Middle East, two powerful nations, Israel and Iran, stand locked in a rivalry that has shaped the region for decades. Their competition is not just about borders or ideology, it's a struggle for influence, security and survival that reverberates far beyond their own territories. Israel, though small in size, is a technologically advanced democracy and a close ally of the United States. It's the only country in the region widely believed to possess nuclear weapons, giving it a unique strategic edge. Israel's military is among the most capable in the world, and its intelligence services are renowned for their reach and effectiveness. Iran, on the other hand, is much larger and rich in natural resources, especially oil. As an Islamic republic, it seeks to expand its influence across the Middle East by supporting powerful groups like Hezbollah in Lebanon and the Houthis in Yemen. Iran's Revolutionary Guard plays a key role in projecting its power beyond its borders. Surprisingly, Israel and Iran were once not enemies. Before 1979, the two countries even cooperated diplomatically and economically, but everything changed with the Iranian Revolution. After the revolution, Iran's new leaders saw Israel and the United States as existential threats. This shift fueled a deep hostility that has only grown more intense over the years, shaping both countries' foreign policies and alliances. The rivalry has played out in many ways through covert operations, cyber attacks, proxy wars, and more recently, open military confrontations. Both sides have invested heavily in intelligence and military capabilities to outmaneuver each other. What began as a shadow war fought in the dark has now erupted into direct conflict. Missiles and drones cross borders, striking military and civilian targets, raising the risk of a wider war. The stakes are incredibly high, not just for Israel and Iran but for the entire world. The conflict threatens regional stability, global energy supplies, and the lives of millions of people. In this video, we'll break down how this dangerous situation developed, examine the latest clashes, and explore what the future might hold for these two powerful rivals and the region as a whole. Join us as we dive into the story of Israel and Iran, two powerful rivals whose ongoing conflict could reshape the Middle East and impact the world in ways we're only beginning to understand. For years, Israel and Iran fought a hidden war, one that played out in the shadows, far from the eyes of the public. This was not a conventional conflict with armies clashing on open battlefields, but a relentless struggle waged through intelligence, sabotage, and subterfuge. It was a war of sabotage, assassinations, and cyber attacks, where each side sought to undermine the other's capabilities and ambitions without triggering a full-scale war. Israel, deeply concerned about Iran's nuclear ambitions and the possibility of a nuclear-armed adversary, launched a series of covert operations. The most infamous was the Stuxnet virus, a sophisticated cyber weapon that crippled Iran's nuclear program and sent shockwaves through the world of cyber warfare. In response, Iran built a vast network of proxy groups across the region. Most notably, Hezbollah in Lebanon and Hamas in Gaza became powerful tools for Iran to pressure Israel from multiple directions, creating a constant sense of threat along Israel's borders. These proxies were supplied with advanced weapons, steady funding, and rigorous training. What began as isolated border skirmishes soon escalated into regional crises, drawing in neighboring countries and raising the stakes for everyone involved. The shadow war grew even darker with a string of assassinations targeting Iranian nuclear scientists, operations widely attributed to Israel. Each attack heightened the sense of vulnerability and pushed both nations closer to the brink of open conflict. The conflict spilled over into the seas as both sides targeted oil tankers and ships linked to each other's interests, turning the Persian Gulf into a dangerous chessboard of maritime attacks and reprisals. This underground conflict bred deep resentment and a thirst for revenge among ordinary people, fueling protests, demonstrations, and a cycle of retaliation that seemed impossible to break. For decades, the world watched anxiously as the fire smoldered beneath the surface, with diplomats and world leaders struggling to contain the fallout and prevent a wider war. But with every new attack, every escalation, it became clear that it was only a matter of time before this secret war erupted into open flames, threatening to engulf the entire region. The era of shadows was ending. The secret war was about to become very public, with consequences the world could no longer ignore. The shadow war burst into the open after Hamas, backed by Iran, launched a devastating attack on Israel in October 2023. Israel's massive response in Gaza triggered a regional chain reaction. Hezbollah began daily rocket attacks from Lebanon, forcing mass evacuations and stretching Israel's military thin. Iran's strategy of using proxies was working. Conflict was spreading on multiple fronts. In Yemen, Iran-backed Houthis attacked ships in the Red Sea, disrupting global trade and drawing in U.S. warships. The violence escalated further with Israeli strikes killing senior Iranian and Hezbollah leaders. For Iran, these attacks crossed a red line, demanding a direct response. The region braced for a confrontation that was no longer limited to the shadows. The stage was set for open war between Israel and Iran. The world watched as the conflict threatened to spiral out of control. The next move would change the Middle East forever. The countdown to direct war had begun. In late 2024, the conflict erupted into direct warfare. Iran launched a major missile attack on Israel, striking civilian areas and shattering old boundaries. Israel retaliated with a powerful strike on Iran's nuclear facilities, hitting targets deep inside Tehran and killing key military and scientific leaders. Iran responded with waves of missiles and drones, overwhelming Israeli defenses and forcing civilians into shelters. The cycle of attack and counterattack escalated rapidly, with both nations targeting each other's critical infrastructure. Israel expanded its strikes to Iranian oil refineries and weapons factories, aiming to cripple Iran's war machine. The conflict had become a full-scale war, with devastating consequences for both sides. The world's worst fears were coming true. The old rules no longer applied. Total war was now a reality. The region teetered on the edge of catastrophe. The summer of 2025 marked a dramatic turning point as the United States officially entered the war, ending months of speculation and diplomatic maneuvering. The world watched as American forces mobilized, signaling a new and far more dangerous phase in the conflict. After years of supporting Israel from the sidelines, the U.S. made a decisive move, launching direct and coordinated strikes on Iran's nuclear sites. The skies over Iran lit up as American jets targeted key facilities aiming to cripple Iran's nuclear ambitions and send a clear message to Tehran. President Trump addressed the nation in a somber televised speech, warning that further attacks would follow if Iran did not immediately back down. His words signaled a new level of escalation, and the world braced for what might come next. The conflict now had global implications. Americans worldwide were put on high alert, with embassies and military bases tightening security. Airports saw anxious travelers, and governments everywhere scrambled to assess the risks to their own citizens. Iran struck back swiftly, targeting a major U.S. military base in Qatar. The attack left the region on edge, and in a bold move, Iran also cut off cooperation with international nuclear inspectors, raising fears of unchecked nuclear development. The war was no longer just between Israel and Iran. It had now drawn in a superpower, threatening to pull in other nations and spread instability across the globe. Military alliances were tested and world leaders scrambled to respond. Inside Iran, defiance only grew stronger. Lawmakers moved quickly to block outside oversight of their nuclear program, while crowds in Tehran rallied in support of the government's stance, fueling a sense of national resistance. The stakes had never been higher. Military commanders on all sides prepared for the worst, and newsrooms buzzed with speculation about what the next days might bring. Around the world, people watched anxiously, glued to their screens, fearing that the conflict could spiral into something even bigger and more uncontrollable. The entry of the U.S. changed everything, shifting the balance of power and raising the specter of a much wider war. The war's outcome was now more uncertain than ever, with diplomats and analysts warning that the world was entering uncharted territory. The Middle East was on a knife's edge, its future hanging in the balance as the world held its breath. The war devastated both nations' most vital sites and cities. Israel's strikes crippled Iran's nuclear program, setting it back by years, according to Israeli officials. Iran retaliated by targeting Israeli cities and military bases, turning places like Hod Hasharon and Tel Aviv into ghost towns. Daily life ground to a halt, schools closed, airports shut down, and fear gripped the population. U.S. airstrikes added to the destruction, though their effectiveness was debated. Economic warfare intensified as Israel targeted Iranian oil facilities, while Iran attacked shipping in the Red Sea. Both economies suffered, with long-term consequences for ordinary people. The battlefield extended beyond land to the global economy itself. The war's reach was felt far beyond the Middle East. Infrastructure, pride, and livelihoods were all under fire. The cost of war was measured in more than just military losses. For ordinary people, the war brought fear, loss, and upheaval. In Israel, air raid sirens and nights in bomb shelters became routine, while schools and businesses shut down. In Iran, airstrikes destroyed buildings and lives, with families mourning in silence amid government rallies. Economic hardship deepened as prices soared and jobs vanished on both sides. The emotional toll was immense: anxiety, trauma, and a growing sense of hopelessness. Hatred and mistrust hardened, making peace seem more distant than ever. For a generation of Israelis and Iranians, war became a defining memory. The scars, physical and emotional, would last long after the fighting stopped. After weeks of devastation, a ceasefire brought a fragile calm. The guns fell silent, but the peace was uneasy, just a pause, not a resolution. Global leaders, especially from the Gulf, pushed for urgent diplomacy to prevent another explosion of violence. President Trump announced talks with Iran, offering a glimmer of hope for a diplomatic breakthrough. In Israel and Iran, people emerged from shelters, schools reopened, and life slowly resumed amid the ruins. The ceasefire was fragile, with deep wounds and high casualties on both sides. The memory of loss made peace talks even more difficult. The world held its breath, hoping the pause would last. The future remained uncertain. The war's end left the Middle East at a crossroads. The ceasefire stopped the violence, but the core issues, nuclear ambitions, proxy wars, and deep mistrust, remained unresolved. The US-Israel alliance grew stronger, while Iran faced greater isolation and internal challenges. The international community pushed for talks, knowing another war could be even more catastrophic. Real peace would require tough compromises: limits on Iran's nuclear program, reduced support for proxies, and security guarantees for Israel. The path forward is uncertain and fraught with obstacles. The memory of war lingers, and the risk of renewed conflict is ever present. The choices made in Tehran, Jerusalem, and Washington will shape the region's future. The world watches, hoping for peace but bracing for what may come next.